It was June the 10th, a sunny day, when John Wesley first preached out of doors in Leicester. He'd been over at Markfield, where a friend of his was vicar, and because of that he was allowed to preach in the church. But if he had no contact like that, he was forced to preach, and I think forced is the right word, out of doors. Now the question was, where would you preach out of doors in Leicester in 1753? Well, you couldn't preach in the marketplace because the marketplace was noisy, and if they didn't like you, there was presumably rotten vegetables enough to throw at you. So it was a restricted choice. And clearly somebody in Leicester said, "But Close Lane." And that's where we're standing, But Close Lane. And here, 1753, John Wesley preached for the first time. Frustratingly, he doesn't record what he preached about. He doesn't always. But he talks about the people of Leicester. And this I think, is appropriate, and it's a fitting tribute. He said that they were serious people. They were attentive, and there was not a sign of any disturbance. It's interesting that But Close Lane was the choice, because it has a long history of being an open space. It was, as the name suggests, where archery practice took place. You put up the targets, the butts, and you fired at them from the north, from across near St Margaret's. And so, with a site like that, it was always going to be open. On the site of where John Wesley preached, there is a car park. I don't think it was ever built on. I think this has been an open space of some sort or another from Roman times. And Roman times are significant because it is just outside the Roman walls. The Roman walls, the East Roman walls, ran along what we now call Church Gate. For those with a historic eye, the old town walls and the surroundings were still present in Wesley's day. The wall stood on a little bank, the fosse, and in front of it there was a ditch, the vallum, and that was all still there in the mid-18th century. There is in fact a story about a lady making her way along Churchgate, and a strong wind came and blew her into the ditch. Scraps of the line are still visible in the backyards of houses, and it came out about a third of the way up But Close Lane. I can remember 30 odd years ago when this car park was set out, there was a line of local stone, sort of Mount Sorrel granite, that sort of slightly reddish purplish stone. That, I'm fairly certain, was what remained at the time of the old city wall, though of course rebuilt by the medievals. Evidence for the medieval, and before that the Roman wall, can still be seen in little bits of Leicester. Here, for instance, on But Close Lane, if you come up the lane from Churchgate, on the left you get the great wall that encloses the burying ground for Great Meeting. It's a brick wall, almost certainly 18th century, but you look at the lower courses and there's stone. That stone, I think, was, in the phrase the archaeologists use, robbed out from the old medieval wall and reused for the base of the burying ground wall. So we're very much on the edge, we're very much on the margins, which tells you something, or might tell you something, about how Wesleyan nonconformist religion was observed, was honoured in those days. So here he was, a figure of the establishment, but a figure who was preaching on the edge. And he was preaching, and he does say this in his journal, he was preaching to all who came. He says, rich and poor, they all came to hear him. those terms encapsulating the Methodist message, summed up in that word, all.